We start with multiple breaking news developments on Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. Late today, Donald Trump filing a libel suit against the Wall Street Journal over its new Epstein reporting. Also late today, Trump's DOJ filing a motion to unseal grand jury testimony about Epstein. Trump's new suit names Rupert Murdoch, the Journal's parent company, and the two reporters who broke that story. The Journal detailing a 2003 letter that Trump reportedly wrote to Epstein for his 50th birthday. The Journal describes the letter as, quote, bawdy. It contains several lines of typewritten text framed by the outline of a naked woman, which appears to be hand-drawn with a heavy marker. In the message, Trump reportedly imagines a conversation with Epstein. Quote, Donald, we have certain things in common, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, yes, we do, come to think of it. Donald, enigmas never age. Have you noticed that? And it ends with the line, Donald, a pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday. And may every day be another wonderful secret. Trump denies the story. Quote, this is not me. This is a fake thing. It's a fake Wall Street Journal story. I never wrote a picture in my life. I don't draw pictures of women. As for Trump's Attorney General Pam Bondi, late today, she filed a motion to unseal grand jury transcripts. But the process could take weeks. And as the Post reports, even if released, the material would constitute only a fraction of the evidence and investigative material that the FBI amassed during its years-long investigation. Critics pointing out it looks like Trump is trying to stall and dodge rather than actually reveal critical information. Greg Sargent in the New Republic writing, quote, Trump's only way out of this is to seek full release of the Epstein files. But he won't, and he can't explain why he won't. The more he calls for meaningless releases that don't provide real transparency, the more he will stoke conspiracism, and the more he'll appear in on the elite cover-up. Trump today getting hit with more questions.
Mr. President, why not go further than just unsealing their...
Mr. President, did you send that letter? Release the full files?
Christy Greenberg, MSNBC legal analyst and former deputy chief of criminal division for the Southern District of New York, and Lisa Rubin, MSNBC legal correspondent, join us tonight here at the table. Thank you both for being here. Christy, I want to start with you and this lawsuit. Trump going after Rupert Murdoch, the reporters behind this story, filed in Florida in the district where a judge named Eileen Cannon just so happens to be. I'm curious what you think is going on here and if he really has a shot at being successful in going after this story.
Well, if he's before a Judge Cannon, he's got a shot. But putting that aside, I mean, look, the Wall Street Journal knew this was going to happen. There had been communications days before this story broke where he was threatening to sue. So this can't be a surprise to anybody that he managed to follow through with it. Whether or not he has a leg to stand on, I think they wouldn't have published this story if they didn't feel very confident. And, you know, he has to show that they knew that this was false, that this was going to be defamatory. I believe it's a libel lawsuit. And you know, they must feel like they are on very solid footing as to where they got this letter, what their sourcing was, and that they reported it accurately. So given all of that, I think he's unlikely to succeed unless he happens to get a good draw with good old Judge Cannon.
Lisa, is there any chance here that a lawsuit could actually backfire on Trump in this case?
It could. And the way that it would backfire on him, Antonia, is through the discovery process. Because as you know, if a case were to survive a motion to dismiss, then the parties begin to exchange information that helps them prove either their claims or their defenses. As the plaintiff in this lawsuit, Donald Trump would have to sit for a deposition. And as an observer of prior Trump litigation, including both of the E. Jean Carroll trials,
right,
I can tell you that where Donald Trump has an opportunity to defend himself, he is always his worst enemy. He literally buried himself in the E. Jean Carroll trial through his deposition there. That's where he mistook a picture of E. Jean for his then wife, Marla Maples. It's also where he doubled down on the Access Hollywood tape and said that he considered himself a star. In other words, yes, when he said that stars could do certain things, he was absolutely talking about himself and describing his own modus operandi. Those were things that juries 2 juries of his New York peers held against him in the E. Jean Carroll case. If his defamation case were to go that far, Donald Trump would have to sit for a deposition, exchange materials. But of course, Donald Trump is counting, Antonia, on it never going that far. Because in the 2 lawsuits that he's filed to date against other media organizations, he has extracted settlements from them well before those things could ever happen.
So you think his hope here is basically that the Wall Street Journal's parent company is like, we want this to go away and we'll pay for it to get out of our face?
Yes. I mean, I think the Wall Street Journal's parent companies will first try what I suggested, which is to move to dismiss on legal grounds, to say that whatever Donald Trump's complaint says against them doesn't even meet the legal framework for a defamation claim. Now, we haven't seen that complaint yet. It hasn't been filed. If your viewers or you have noticed me like typing away at my computer, it's because I'm trying to find that complaint as soon as it's publicly available. All we know is that a docket has been created, meaning a case has been created online, that he has sued 5 entities or individuals, and that the case is described online as being a defamation case. Beyond that, we don't even know who represents Donald Trump right now. On the docket, he's described as pro se, which is the legal term for someone who represents themselves. Clearly, Donald Trump is not representing himself in this case. So there's a lot we still have to learn about Donald Trump's defamation case against the Wall Street Journal, its reporters, and Rupert Murdoch. But by naming Murdoch himself as a defendant, I think that's sign number 1 that he's hoping for a settlement.
So a lot still to come there. But then, Christy, on this effort to unseal the grand jury testimony going through your former workplace, can you break that down for us? And how likely is it that those documents, all that testimony, will actually see the light of day?
It's unlikely that those grand jury transcripts will see the light of day. The reason why is grand jury proceedings are in secret. Those are the rules. You have to have a reason to be able to say why it shouldn't be secret. It's some kind of law enforcement reason, an ongoing case. You're helping other kinds of law enforcement agencies, right? Here, the interest is public is interested, and the public could be interested in a lot of different cases. That's not alone enough to get a judge to unseal grand jury transcripts. So I don't think they will succeed here. Where they may succeed is getting some of the information that had already come out at trial, information that's already been public in other areas, or if certain people whose testimony is in those transcripts, if they would agree and not put up a fight to it. But I mean, the other thing to take a step back, even if any of this were to be public, this is grand jury testimony where the prosecutors went in and said, here's our evidence against Epstein, here's our evidence against Maxwell. Not against Donald Trump. I would be shocked if you saw Donald Trump's name anywhere in these transcripts. Right. Remember, A.G. Barr was the attorney general at that point. Even listing Donald Trump as individual 1 in that indictment was a huge battle. There's no way he's getting dragged into Epstein and Maxwell grand jury presentations. So he's not a part of this, and he knows that. So even if he were to lose with the judge and this gets unsealed, he's fine. It's not implicating him. And it's not really, I think, going to implicate anybody else, because that wasn't the point of those presentations. There weren't other targets there that they were looking to indict. So the base's interest in a client list and finding out all these other people who they believe may be culpable, that's not what you would see in this transcript. So this is a red herring. This is a way for him to distract from the evidence people are actually interested in, which are the notes from interviews of these various witnesses that they looked at in this investigation. And that he doesn't need a court order to turn over. He could turn that over on his own. The fact that they haven't, that's the question people should be asking.
Lisa, do you see this as a red herring, as a distraction? I mean, do you think people will be able to understand all of what she's just laid out here, that this is just a fraction of what's out there, and that there's other information the federal government has that it sounds like we still will not see? Mm-hmm. Are people, given the way this story has gone and this fire has just continued to spread, do you think people are going to be on to what she's just laid out there?
Well, I think our viewers will, but the larger populace that is calling for the release of these files, I'm not sure that they will, because they'll see this as a sign that Donald Trump is trying to be more transparent and trying to let the information be free. But for this terrible federal judge, there's a judge in the Southern District who oversaw the Epstein case, who I know, as we sit here tonight, is maybe days away from being demonized by this White House as just another radical liberal Donald Trump hating judge who didn't want to let the administration educate the public about the Epstein files. It plays, Antonia, right into their narrative about judges and the press, as well as into Donald Trump's efforts to protect himself and inoculate himself from the growth of this story.
So I have to ask you both quickly. Senator Dick Durbin published a letter today. He said his office was told that FBI agents were instructed to flag any records in which President Trump was mentioned. Is that normal? What does that signal to the two of you?
Signals he's running the show, right? Like in the past, pre-Donald Trump, you had an attorney general who was independent and who ran investigations because they were in the best interest of the public and the people. Here, if you're looking for any mention of Donald Trump, why is that? It's clearly to protect Donald Trump, to protect his interests, not because the public may have an interest in knowing that information. And so there has been a lot of questions about this decision, this 180, where, you go from February, where there's a press conference and we're the most transparent administration in history. You go from that to now you're not getting anything. What is the reason for that? How was the decision made? We got a 2-page memo that said a whole lot of nothing. And nobody is really being clear. It was an unsigned memo. We don't know who made these decisions. And this says to me, Donald Trump is the one directing the